Get ready for the Texas Real Estate Commission licensing exam with these important questions and answers on the topic of property disclosures. Let's begin. What is the purpose of property disclosure laws? A. The purpose of property disclosure laws is to protect buyers by requiring sellers to disclose any known defects or issues with the property. What type of defects must be disclosed? A. Any material defects or issues that may affect the value or desirability of the property must be disclosed, including structural problems, water damage, and hazardous materials. Are sellers required to disclose minor cosmetic issues? A. No, minor cosmetic issues do not need to be disclosed unless they are indicative of a larger problem or issue with the property. When must property disclosures be made? A. Property disclosures must be made prior to the sale of the property, typically during the negotiation or contract phase. Can property disclosures be waived? A. Yes, property disclosures can be waived if both the buyer and seller agree in writing, but it is not recommended. What is the Texas Seller Disclosure Notice? A. The Texas Seller Disclosure Notice is a form that the seller must complete and provide to the buyer, disclosing any known defects or issues with the property. Are sellers required to hire a professional inspector to conduct a property inspection? A. No, sellers are not required to hire a professional inspector, but it is recommended to ensure that all potential issues are disclosed. Are buyers allowed to conduct their own property inspections? A. Yes, buyers are allowed to conduct their own property inspections or hire a professional inspector at their own expense. Can a seller be held liable for failing to disclose a known defect? A. Yes, a seller can be held liable for failing to disclose a known defect or issue with the property, which could result in legal and financial consequences. Are property disclosures required for new construction homes? A. Yes, property disclosures are required for new construction homes, even if the seller is the builder. Some text goes here. What must be disclosed by a seller to a buyer in Texas? Some text goes here. Sellers must disclose any known defects and material facts that could affect the value or desirability of the property. Is a seller required to disclose a death on the property? No, a seller is not required to disclose a death on the property, but it may be necessary to do so if the death occurred under certain circumstances, such as a violent crime or suicide. What is the Seller's Disclosure Notice, SDN, form? The SDN is a standardized form that provides a checklist of items for sellers to disclose to buyers regarding the property's condition and any known defects. When should the SDN form be given to the buyer? The seller should provide the SDN form to the buyer before the execution of a contract, or within 7 days after the contract execution date, whichever is earlier. Some text goes here. Can a buyer waive the right to receive the SDN form? Some text goes here. Yes, a buyer can waive the right to receive the SDN form, but the waiver must be in writing and signed by the buyer. What is the role of the real estate agent in property disclosures? Real estate agents have a duty to disclose any known material facts about the property to potential buyers, but they are not responsible for inspecting the property or investigating the condition of the property. What is the difference between a patent and a latent defect? A patent defect is a visible defect that can be discovered through reasonable inspection, while a latent defect is a hidden defect that is not readily discoverable through reasonable inspection. What is the duty of a seller regarding latent defects? A seller has a duty to disclose any known latent defects that could affect the value or desirability of the property, even if they are not readily discoverable through reasonable inspection. Can a buyer waive the right to receive disclosures about latent defects? No, a buyer cannot waive the right to receive disclosures about latent defects, even if they are not readily discoverable through reasonable inspection. What happens if a seller fails to disclose a known defect? If a seller fails to disclose a known defect, the buyer may have the right to rescind the contract or seek damages, depending on the circumstances of the case.